Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm State Representative Mike Mrowicki from the Windham 4 District of Putney and Dummerston, and today's guest is State Senator Wendy Harrison from Brattleboro. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi, Mike. Hi, I'm happy to be here today.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. We are at the midpoint of the legislative session, 9 weeks into our 18-week session in our part-time citizen legislature, and I appreciate you taking some time out of the so-called week off for town meeting to talk about the first half of the session and what we might be looking forward to in the second half of the session. The House and Senate is heading towards what's known as crossover week, where bills have to cross over from one body to the other so they can be fully vetted as per the Constitution to perhaps become a law. And Wendy, in the Senate, you get two committees to sit on. And which are the two committees that you're working on?
I am on the Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs Committee. And then my afternoon committee is the Institutions Committee. Yep.
Now, housing is certainly one of those topics where the need has grown into a crisis proportion, in that for years now, basically, the housing trusts have been the only ones putting affordable housing online, and most builders are focused on what some call trophy houses, the really high-end ones, and there hasn't been a lot of building otherwise. What can we do to help the situation now?
Right, you're right, Mike. It's a complicated issue. We on our committee, we focused on this for at least 6 weeks. And being a new legislator, it was great for me to have that kind of focus on an issue. And it is something that I did have experience with. I worked with Windham Windsor Housing Trust, so I'm familiar with the great work that they do and similar organizations around the state. The pandemic obviously worsened the crisis. We had a lot of folks move here. They purchased houses sight unseen. And this wasn't something just particular to Vermont. That happened all over the country. So we had a real squeeze on supply. For a while, we've had not enough investment in new housing. We've had some investment in by the housing agencies, as you spoke of, but we haven't been building houses for decades. And at the same time, our family size has gotten smaller. So even though our population hasn't increased, the number of people, because the number of people living in homes has gone down from, say, 5 to 2, you need more homes to go around just to house folks. And there are all sorts of bottlenecks too. We found that older folks who may want to downsize are not able to find something that they like. So they're in a house that's too big for them, which means that house isn't available for a larger family. So we actually put some funding in for home sharing, which is something that a lot of folks don't know about. And that's a program where with very little money, we can get someone to 2 folks at least, or 2 families in a house instead of one. So I'll stop there for a second.
Now, I just wanted to jump in there because Anna Marie Pluhar in Dummerston is our local advocate for home sharing, and she's been working hard to let people know that it's an option out there. And one of the things she's trying to get, and I've got a bill in the House, we'll see where it goes, is to help see that the income people take in from home sharing is not taxable income. So it gives people another incentive to think about home sharing and making space for at least one other person in there. So, but that's kind of a thing that we might call nibbling around the edges. Are there any bigger plans within the bill you're working on?
Oh, yes, definitely. There's lots of bigger plans. We put $20 million into what's called the VHIP program, which it already existed as a pilot, but now it's going to be a regular program. And that is a program where private landlords can get grants or loans to repair apartments that are not up to code. And we have several folks in our area who have taken advantage of that, which is just a great program because it preserves the fabric of the community. So you're fixing up homes that or buildings that need fixing up. Often they're in a place that has good walkability, good transportation, so they're perfect places for people to rent. And you're helping private landlords be part of the solution, which is great.
Yeah. I think we access VHIP through the local housing trust.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yes. In our area, Windham Windsor Housing Trust manages that program.
Yeah,
We also put in funding for some more rental, large rental communities to be built by developers. We extended the middle income housing program. We put some more money into that. And as you know better than I do, this bill is just the start of the process. Our bill passed out of our committee unanimously, which was great. It's now in the Natural Resources Committee, and they'll definitely take a look at the changes that we're proposing to Act 250. We also have some changes that are proposed to town zoning because that's been seen as a barrier. We made, or we're suggesting that any town site or property that allows a single family home now allow a duplex. And in that way, we would double the potential housing immediately. And we're also suggesting that properties that are on water and sewer and in a place that should be developed, so not some place that doesn't have any development, but it's on water and sewer, because water and sewer are investments by both the federal and the state government. So our communities have invested in those areas, that those places should have at least 4 dwelling units an acre able to be built, not required to be built. But if the property owner wants to build to that extent, they should be able to.
Yeah. And that's the only way I think we're going to get the cost of housing down, is if we go towards more multiple family dwellings and create an economy of scale.
Right, and smaller units, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, those are really popular. A lot of people want to live in smaller houses.
Yeah.
Both older people and younger people don't want big houses that take a lot of maintenance. So we also put in incentives for ADUs as well as funding.
Yeah. And the days of everyone wanting their 10 acres on a mountaintop are over.
Or if they do, they can do that now. But we're not encouraging that in any way. We think it's important to preserve the character of Vermont, where we have distinct settlements with forests and farms in between the settlements. That's what people love about living here, and that's why people come to visit here too. And
it's really the European model to have villages and protecting the conserving outside the village, the lands. And it's a model I think we can live with, and it's also a model that fits in with our climate action goals. And if we can switch the topic a little bit,
sure.
The Senate passed out, I believe, S5, the Affordable Heat Act. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. This got a lot of public comment, or I received a lot of public comment, and so did the other senators. This bill is part of the overall climate action plan. The legislature worked on transportation a few years back, and actually has been working on a clean heat standard for 20 years. I found out in this process that the legislature's been working hard to find a way to move forward, because almost 30% of our emissions are from heating our homes and our buildings.
Yeah.
And what we found is that many folks, generally the folks with more income, they've already been transitioning away from oil, because oil is, as everyone knows, very expensive and very volatile. The price went up $2 a gallon last winter, and the state has no control over that. While we do have some control over the price of electricity, and we have a really strong electric grid. So what S5 proposes is a study to determine how to create a credit system where credits are purchased by an entity that's to be established.
Yeah.
And the credits are used to help moderate and low income homeowners upgrade their homes. And that doesn't mean heat pumps. It can mean heat pumps. It doesn't have to, but it includes weatherization. It includes clean wood heat and things like electric heat pumps, with the idea being that you can have multiple sources of heating. That was something that I think we didn't do a good enough job of letting folks know, because the emails that I received were against it, said, I don't want to give up my oil heat. And I totally understand that, especially in the depths of winter. Oil heat is very reliable. But to meet our climate goals and to help Vermonters have more stability and lower heat bills generally, the more weatherized we can make their homes, and the more sources of heat. For example, we have heat pumps, we have a pellet stove, we have oil heat, and the way we manage our system is we only use the oil when we have to.
Yeah.
Because it is the most expensive.
It's the most expensive.
So really everybody should have that opportunity, and that's the intent of the bill.
Yeah. Well, I tell people my story, where I used to heat with wood primarily, 5 cords of wood a year. And 2 years ago, we put in heat pumps. Now, if I were burning 5 cords of wood this year, wood's about $300 a cord. That's about $1,500. Our heating costs with the heat pump are about $1,000. That's a significant change for the better. So it's clean heat and it's less costly. And what I would say is that there's lots of options like that. It doesn't have to be exactly like that, but we want to move from 19th century heating technology into the 21st century. We want to do our part and clean up the air, and we want it to be less costly. So I think this S5 is a great start in that direction. So thanks for passing that.
Oh, I think so too. And that's a great example. And one thing that we did do, just to help the folks who were nervous about it and against it, is we changed a report that was just a advisory report in 2 years into another vote that would be required by the legislature to proceed. So there's another check back, but folks who are in favor of the process shouldn't be alarmed, because we're still going to do all the things that we were planning to do in this 2 years, because it's just a very complicated system.
Well, we did pass the Climate Solutions Act, where we have set some goals, and
Right.
We have actually put some teeth in it. So if we don't meet those goals, then we are opening ourselves up to legal action. So we have an incentive to actually do this. And the other big incentive is we want cleaner air.
Right. So we'll see what happens when it gets to your side.
Yeah, well, we're really raring to go on this. We passed this last year. The governor vetoed it, and we fell short by 1 vote. So we're really looking forward to getting this on track. And there's a couple of other bills that the governor vetoed we're looking to get on track. Primarily, that's paid family leave. And I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. on that side, on the Senate side yet, but this is something that we feel COVID really amplified the need for, that families need that help. Every other industrial country in the world has this policy except the United States, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen on the federal level, but I think it's time we did something like this on a state level. And I don't know if you've heard from people about that, but I think this is another issue that we really need to put these kind of family-friendly policies, whether you're taking care of kids, taking care of older parents. But any thoughts on unpaid family and medical leave?
I haven't seen the most recent bill. I did campaign in support of it, so I am in support of it. Also in support of childcare.
Yeah.
So that's we have so many needs. The challenge is to balance them. Yeah.
Well, another thing that you have some experience in is public transportation, and I wonder if there's any ideas in the Senate that are getting shared with the public on that.
Well, I'm not on the transportation committee, so I'm sure there's a lot I'm not aware of, but I did get appointed to the Public Transit Advisory Committee, which I'm really excited about that. That is a group of legislators and staff and advocates who work on public transit. I know that we are doing some pilot programs on it's described as an Uber service, which is good. Obviously that where the bus comes and picks you up at a particular place and then takes you to a particular place. It's challenging in a small state to do that, but it's certainly worth piloting and seeing how we can make it work. I'm excited for that program, especially with regard to the Amtrak service, because now that we have the new service on the west side of the state, the Ethan Allen, both services are doing really well. There was some concern that the Ethan Allen would eat away at the Vermonter ridership, but that hasn't happened. The ridership is still strong, and that kind of flexible bus service is really what we need to connect the bus to the train, because you don't want people getting off from a train in a place where they don't have a place to go, like Montpelier. But yeah, I'm excited about that. The state really does promote and support public transportation, which you would think in a state this rural might not make sense, but because of the way we developed with the nodes of development and the green spaces in between, we really can focus on those nodes and then make sure we have trunk lines to go in between, like the Route 53 here in our area that goes from Brattleboro up to Bellows Falls, goes through Putney. It's good. So I'm excited to be part of that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what gets put on the table. I was talking to someone I know from Brattleboro, Fred Brunig, who visited Switzerland this summer, and even when they went out into the countryside, up into the mountains, they didn't have to rent a car because the public transportation goes everywhere.
Right. So it's environmentally effective. It's good for your wallet. It's good for your health. There are so many reasons. Yeah, we're just not used to it as much as we could be in this country. But I've met quite a few people who have actually moved to either Brattleboro or Bellows Falls because they knew they could live here without a car.
Yeah. And I think there are some states who are giving housing incentives to developers who will build near train stations.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. It's a TID. I think it's transit something development. No, that's definitely done. And we talked about that in our housing conversations, actually, because well, our state already does that to some extent in the Act 250 process. You can get more units. I don't know exactly the parameters, but you can get more units if you are served by transit. Yeah. The challenge is finding a funding source. We don't have reliable funding sources yet for transit, but we can figure that out.
Yep. Well, something for the future that I think shows that we can do things differently. So sometimes we do things that don't necessarily make a lot of headlines, and but I think it's interesting to the public who doesn't have that access to being in the building in the State House. And we were talking earlier about something that you were working on in regards to opening up the auditor's office to restore some of the scope of their practice. Can you share something more about that?
Sure, I'm happy to. This came up about 2 weeks ago. Evidently, there was a state Supreme Court ruling that said that the auditor was not, you know what, Mike, this is one thing. Can I go back?
You can do it
Start on
over,
this?
and we
Okay,
can make,
okay,
they do a great job of editing it.
okay, good.
Oh.
So,
You want the question again, or do you want to just
no, I'll start again.
you count down to 5? So
Me or you?
You do it.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, I'm happy to talk about that. A couple of weeks ago, we were advised in a committee that there would be a bill coming to us to restore the authority that the auditor had. The state auditor, as you know, is an elected body, or elected person, I should say. And there was a Supreme Court case, state Supreme Court, that had thrown some doubt on whether or not the auditor could audit contracts that the state has with companies. So that would be maybe a paving contractor, or any sort of service, or even materials. The state has a lot of contracts for services. I think it was maybe 15% of what we spend, but there are many contracts, some of them for hundreds of millions of dollars. And so there was some concern expressed by the administration that allowing the auditor to have that authority would be a detriment to companies bidding on contracts to the state, or for the state, because they wouldn't want to subject themselves to the audit requirements. This alarmed me. I've been involved with auditing in most of the towns that I've worked with and for, and to me, public money is special. We tax people, we basically take their money, so we need to treat it very carefully and make sure it's being spent correctly. So I think it's super important to support the audit function. In my institutions committee, I asked the auditor directly, is this bill going to be an expansion of your authorities or a resumption of your authorities? And he said very clearly it was a resumption of the authority of the auditor. So I supported this bill. I would continue to support this bill. I was surprised at the pushback from the administration and others. So I hope that it does get supported when it goes to the House.
Sure. This sounds to me that this fits right in with the checks and balances that government's supposed to have, and right along with being transparent and accountable. That accountability is necessary for voters and for citizens when we're spending, like you said, we're spending the money that they have shared with the government, and trust that it's being used as wisely as possible. So right now, that would restore the authority that the auditor formerly had. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it would. It would make it clear in contracts that the auditor has the authority to audit the contracts. And the auditor can only audit the company's information to the extent that it is part of the contract and is germane to the contract.
Yeah.
So the auditor said he doesn't have any interest in auditing the salaries of the employees of the company and that kind of thing, unless it's germane to the audit itself.
Yeah.
Or to the contract itself, rather.
So it's not like he's going on a fishing expedition. He's just trying to do the work that voters
Exactly.
to do.
Exactly. And as a former staff person, I felt more comfortable when things were audited, because you have an independent person looking at your work. And sometimes mistakes are made unintentionally. Most often mistakes are made unintentionally. And the sooner you fix them, the better.
Yeah. That totally the way it's supposed to work. Yeah. So we only have a few minutes left now, Senator, and just a couple of things. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Probably email is the best. I'm sorry I wasn't able to respond more quickly to people in my first 2 months. It's been a real learning curve. And I got good advice from someone who said, focus on what you are doing, not what you're not doing.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to use this time in between, this break to get back to people. So my legislative email, it's W.Harrison at, and you can correct me if I get this wrong, leg.vermont, no, .state.vt.us. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I can put it in the chat or
Yeah, we'll have the graphic up there. So email is the best, especially during the session. That's the best way to get in touch with you.
right. And I do have a website, and I'll send, and I send out newsletters.
Great.
And I put the newsletters on the website, and you can sign up to get my newsletters.
So as we head into the second half of the session, is there anything you're looking forward to, especially working on?
Well, on the I haven't really talked about the institutions committee. What we work on is the capital bill, which is very interesting. It's a 2-year budget, and these are capital programs that are proposed by the administration. Many of them have been in the works for years because they are capital programs. Some are ones I'm already familiar with, like barn grants and historic preservation grants that folks can get. Water and sewer grants are part of that bill. So we work on it in the Senate the second half of the session, because the House works on it the first half of the session. And then in economic development, we're starting to look at more labor issues and safety issues. So we started working on a minimum wage bill. We're working on some data privacy, which I find very interesting and very important.
Yep.
And that's one instance, I think, where a small state can really make a difference, because the federal government is behind the curve on data privacy, in my opinion. And so as a small state, we can regulate, and so we can protect our residents' data, which is just super, super important. To me, it's as important as protecting their money.
Yeah, it's a integral part of the 21st century information load. So, well, Wendy, I really appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to checking in through the session and then afterwards to see how your first year goes. But from what I've seen, you're doing some great work, as is your counterpart, your Senate partner, Nader Hashim. So it's great to work with you. It's great to work with you in our county caucus, which I think you've seen. We meet every other week, and it's a great working group.
It is. And I really appreciate having both the support of the caucus and being able to share what I'm finding. So no, we work well together, and I think the people of Windham County are well represented. And thank you for being such a resource, Mike. I truly appreciate that.
Yeah, we work together as a team very well. So, well, thanks again to you, and thanks to all the people at BCTV for making this possible. You do great work in helping bring our work to the people here. So until next time, bye-bye.